Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Town Crier, the Mordheim Age of Sigmar extravaganza. Oh my goodness, who's excited? Tom, are you excited?
I am so excited.
There you go. All right, rock and roll. So, Tom, I wanted to get episode 2 in before you're about to go away on a short vacation, so I wanted to get this in. So thank you for making the time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So, I thought we would cover a selection of things during this show. First off, to all of those who don't know what the heck I'm talking about. So Tom and I put together a rule set, an update, a something of Mordheim for Age of Sigmar. I would like to think the best of both worlds. It's all Mordheim and all Age of Sigmar all the time. As usual, I will post the link down below where you can go get the rules. And we're going to talk through it. But it's exactly that. It lets you play sort of the rules of the Age of Sigmar, but in the same structured format with all the fun of warbands and injuries and gear and fun, wacky, zany adventures that the original Mordheim allowed.
Maiming.
Yeah, maiming. Lots of maiming. Generally, there's missing eyeballs and all sorts of fun stuff like that. Arms, mental trauma as well, which is real fun. But I thought we'd get into it. So now we know, everybody knows what we're talking about now. Let's just assume that our viewers, if they don't know what we're talking about, they went back and watched the original video right now. I'll link that too. You can go watch the original video where Tom and I talk about it for 2 hours and explain everything. So welcome back. It's now 2 hours later. You're very excited about us to continue this conversation. All right. So, Tom, I thought we would start out and talk about our experiences with the game so far. So, what have you played? What warbands have you played, and how has it gone? Walk us through it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I've played predominantly Night Goblins. I've played a handful of games of Night Goblins, at least recently. And I would say that so I would describe my experience as having probably the worst mismatch possible.
All right.
Or one of them. And I alluded to this in a prior conversation, I think maybe on Warhammer Weekly, that so I was running a Night Goblin warband, and with almost all like Night Goblin based troops. You know, I had a handful of like hoppers. I had a shaman. You know, just kind of the standard array. Nothing too spectacular. And I was matched up against the Hand of the King and Queen, which is the High Elven warband, which is basically all elite troops. So it's all like Sisters of Avalorn, upgraded Lothar Sea Guard, which are Maiden Guard and Phoenix Guard. So it's and like so on top of all that, obviously my opponent laid down a Phoenix, like a Fire Phoenix on top. You know, as ridiculous as Fire Phoenixes are, he made the substitution in the beginning. So I would going into this, I really felt like this was going to be the a litmus test for this system because of just how blatantly mismatched it was, and it actually, the system handled well. The first game, based on one of the objectives, I was able to like avoid basically the Phoenix completely, and I hit some of his support troops hard enough that it was forced a route test, and basically route test his second route test, the one that mattered, he fled. So I ended up winning just by him running off the table.
Now, what scenario did you play for your first game?
That was the it was Hidden Treasure.
Okay.
Where there are 6 tokens, and you go out and one of them is the treasure that you need, and all of them are trapped. Basically, all the other ones are trapped.
Right.
And I discovered that game that there's actually no reward for getting off the table with the Hidden Treasure, which is something that we are going to be fixing.
Sure. Well, we did fix that, but we'll talk about fixes in a minute.
Yeah. So that was the first game, and because of the objective aspect of it, I was able to basically largely avoid the Phoenix completely. Another game
let me talk about. So I'll give you my first game.
Yeah.
So I played a 3-player match. Why am I echoing on your computer when you're wearing a headset? It's ridiculous. Only you with your Mac. All right. So there we go. It's better now, apparently. So my first game, I took out the Stormcast. Decided they would be a fun time. All my games I played thus far have been 3-player, which, of course, if you remember Mordheim, that's one of the great things about Mordheim. You know, you can just jam a lot of players onto the board, and hey, it's a good time. It's a murder for all. And for our first game, we did a pretty straight sort of kill match. We played it straight, like literally just let's murder each other, because that seemed a fun thing. So that was good. We played a second game. Oh, I won't. That one was just fast. So I'll do these two real quick. The second game that was much longer, because the first time we played quick, we sort of regened everything once people understood what was going on. I still played my Stormcast, and we did the aggressive rezoning mission where you've got to burn down buildings, and then take control of that territory. So that was a lot of fun. Again, I played the Stormcast. Brutal, the Stormcast performance there. I was very happy with it. That I had some Judicators, some Prosecutors, nice mix of range and melee power. It was, I would say, really positive. I was facing the Empire that match, as well as Orcs and Goblins, the old O's and G's. The Empire was the Grand Marshal one. So that's like all the knights and everything.
Were your O's and G's the big wog?
Yeah, it was the big wog. Yeah, so sort of the generic O's and G's. Exactly. And, had all the standard fun there. I didn't really lose much. I think I skated out of that second match without a lost troop.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty brutalized. Like that. Now that's mainly because the other two got into it right away. Like the orc saw the Empire and was just like, "Oh, it's on," and they called the WA and just ran in, and I just shot at both of them from a distance.
And that's something that happens.
Sure. I mean, hey, if they're going to pick a fight and not come engage me, and I have ranged power, I don't think I can be blamed for doing that. So, Tom, go to your next game for us. What was your next game?
So we did a game of trying to remember now. We did the Portal.
Okay.
Battle over the Portal.
Yep.
And it was I came in with it was the same two warbands matched off against each other. I didn't have a choice but to stare down the Phoenix. I mean, everything was concentrated straight in that center area. And so noticing how the portal fluctuated and was doing kind of automatic wounds fairly regularly within a fairly short distance, I let him come in hard and fast and claim that center area because I knew I had a handful of rounds. And so I stood on the edges with my archers and picked off and basically baited his Phoenix out to do a flyover. I anticipated that I could move a troop just enough to be enticing that they would want to pull his Phoenix in to do a flyover and do the mortal wounds. And sure enough, he did. And so the bulk of his warband was at the heart of the fluctuating portal, taking automatic wounds and elves, obviously, even with a ward save. There were enough just Lothran Seaguard that he was taking casualties from those mortal wounds. And I basically ended up focusing my entire warband on the Flame Phoenix as it came in. And the Night Goblins called their Dark Wog. And it was a painful day for that Phoenix. So it died in the ranged combat phase as like 8 things were getting ready to charge it, 8 or 9 things. So
nice. So my next set of games, I switched over to the Khorne Bloodbound. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and so basically what ended up happening was after the Phoenix ran, which is the right, not rallying him was the right option, so he didn't risk lose. No, I'm sorry. He did rally him. No, never mind. He died. He didn't have a chance to rally because he was going to let him flee otherwise. And luckily he did not lose his Phoenix after the match for his own sake. But
were there any interesting injuries in that match?
Actually, no. And that was the surprising thing. In the first match, there were he skated by with a. I don't think I've lost any of my heroes now that I think about it, because I've been a fairly big chicken for most of my heroes.
Gotcha. So you're a sissy. All right, I understand.
Yeah, I'm playing Night Goblin, so I just have hordes of normal gobos to just throw out in front. No, we really haven't had any major injuries, and I ended up winning the portal thing because he took enough losses to have to start making morale checks, and then he ran. So again, dropped another 6 on that morale check.
Gotcha. So let's see. So my next game, the Empire player stayed on the Empire but switched warbands, went over to the Iron Sides of Nuln. So rolled out with a steam tank. The Dwarven player, or the Orc and Goblin player switched to their ancient enemy, the Dwarves, and rolled out with just a fairly standard. It was the sort of standard Dwarf warband.
Yep.
So nothing
the grudge bearers or the grudge keepers.
Yep, exactly. So nothing too shocking there. Pretty standard dwarviness ensued, and I decided to switch over to the Khorne Bloodbound, and rolled out with the Fury of Khorne. And of course, if I'm going to take the Khorne Bloodbound, well, I had to take a Bloodthirster, and I thought that was important because I wanted to, that was something I wanted to test. The Bloodthirster is just such a destructive monster, and can a small band of humans fighting in some ruins handle the Bloodthirster? The answer turns out is authoritatively yes. My Bloodthirster got way out in front of the warband. Well, she purposely ran out in front of the warband and went and engaged a bunch of his troops. Now, I was thinking I was going to get into a bunch of humans and just leave a pile of corpses. That is not what happened. The power of the injury roll is huge when you've got one big model like that, right? Because what'll happen is they'll be swinging around as 5 or 6 things are on them. They'll knock down 1 or 2 of them or something, but they only knocked them down. Those things are going to stand up next round and still fight. They're going to fight last, but they're going to fight. And it's going to prevent that model from murdering the things that are down while it has to focus on engaging the other up targets.
Yep.
And effectively, she just got brought down by a bunch of handgunners and swordsmen that were just stabbing her with daggers and gun pommels and stuff, bringing down my Bloodthirster. I think she took maybe 3 normal humans with her.
Wow.
That's depressing. It didn't matter though, because what she did do was buy enough time and draw all the fire of the steam tank, and he has a regular cannon as well and everything. So she just drew all the fire, and long enough for the rest of my army to then, or my warband to then arrive. And, then it was just roll tide, right? Because then the blood tide just came in and washed over the Empire. I mean, by the time he got a chance to rout, he had half his troops left, because then I had everybody up and in his stuff. So he brought the Bloodthirster down, but he paid for that. So I see that as a fair trade-off. Khorne cares not from whence the blood flows, right? So I really got out of that pretty good. I think I lost the Bloodthirster. I think I lost, and then 2 henchmen. Neither of the henchmen died permanently, and I lost 2 Blood Reavers or something. And the Bloodthirster rolled the 6 on the initial injury table, which is miraculously nothing. You're okay. Yep. She was fine. Yep. Didn't even have to make an injury roll. I skated out of that one lock, stock. So that was great. The Empire guy ended up restarting for our next game, and the Dwarven player did not. He kept going, and he recruited a gyrocopter, which I thought was cool. I didn't really gain much in the way of money because the dwarf ended up winning. As the Empire, this time the Empire and Khorne smashed each other while the dwarf just stood there and watched. This was ironically also the open the portal scenario. So he just stood basically at the edge of the 6 inches with most of his tough troops, and he would occasionally whatever, they take a wound or something and kind of go down, but they weren't getting killed. They were just generally getting stunned or knocked down, but he had enough people around that he could move the rest of his forces in, to that 6-inch radius, and claim it for sure, even if one of us made a late break and the game ended on turn 4. So that was that one. It was fun. So did you do any more, or?
I personally didn't. One of my friends here, I got a full detailed spread of a game that they did where it was the street alley, or it was like the blockade.
Okay.
And they did a Lizard Man versus VC, and I think it was maybe Stern East. And no, it was maybe Stern East, and it was the Skink, the Red Host.
Gotcha. So the Red Host against the Stern East. All right.
Yep. And amazingly, the Red Host rolled in, and he had the Shaman with like that flies, I guess. And he rolled in on the was it Mazamati or one of the Mazamudi, one of the big boom spells, which we are, I believe we fixed now.
Oh, Masamudi's boom. Lord Croak's spell.
Croak. Yeah, Croak spell. That's the one it was. That basically, like, you cast, and it's just this PBAOE, like, area effect that is just, like, wrecking face around everything around it.
It's quite brutal, yes.
Yeah, and so he had a nice positioning up on a rooftop nearby, and yeah, it was, but it ended up going well. His opponent was actually brand new to not only Mordheim as a concept, but also, like, Warhammer completely. So this is his first time that he'd picked up anything like this, and he really enjoyed it.
That's awesome. No, that's super good to hear. I'm glad that he was able to pick up the concept and get going real fast. That's pretty sweet. That's definitely the idea of the thing. It is pretty easy and fast to learn and whatnot. I got one more game in, so we played again. And that time, the next time our scenario was I don't know. Well, I'll come back to it. Doesn't matter. Because again, I think I pretty much ignored the scenario and was out for revenge on the Empire player. Like, admittedly, I was being a bad person and not heeding the scenario like I should have. But who cares? Because it's all about fun and murder. And if anybody's going to ignore the scenario, it's going to be Corn. I mean, come on. Corn doesn't give a crap about your scenario. The hell.
True.
So, yeah, exactly. So, I once again, this time I was a little more careful with the Bloodthirster, but brought her up there again into combat, and she had a buddy this time. I had, like, my Blood Crusher hero up there with her, and once again she got in a fight with just, like, a ton of state troops.
Nice.
And once again she got killed by them. So she goes down for a second time. I think maybe it was pathetic. I took like 3 people with me, and that was completely on, like, I'm using the Unfettered Fury Bloodthirster, which is the one that, like, makes the ground hot lava. Don't touch the lava. Ground's hot lava. And so I was using that one, and that, like, rolled amazingly. There was 8 or 9 people within range because the Bloodthirster had just been piled on. Yeah. And I rolled like 3 6s. And on my mortal wounds that I did to all 3 of those state troops, I rolled 3 6s and killed 3 of them. So it was like there 6 to wound them, and then 5 6 to put them out of action, and it happened 3 times. So that's how I made more corpses than anything else. Sure. God knows when she was swinging at something, the best she could do is apparently bonk them on the head. So because they were perennially or permanently just knocked down or stunned in the rotating change. And then it all went south from there. This time the tide was split up, and the steam cannon the steam cannon off of the steam tank, by the way, shot my Bloodthirster, crit her on the cannonball, and just and then rolled max wounds. So it was like 7 wounds, no save, just crushing. So she went down, and then the cannon turned on my Blood Crusher champion, killed her in 1 round with just like a 6 wound shot. I was like, Jesus, this thing is unstoppable. Now, keep in mind, the steam tank is, of course, as intimidating as the Bloodthirster, but the last game it had done a combination of jack and shite, right? I mean, it did nothing. It missed a bunch. It rolled around, and then I charged it with all my Blood Warriors and Blood Reavers and literally just beat it to death with hammers and axes. Okay. So I wasn't this time, however, it rolled into me and just opened up and was just on fire. I mean, his dice just got on a streak, man, and that machine gun on top of that thing just was actually a steam gun, but you know what I mean. I picture it like a machine gun since it's got like that 2d6 shots or whatever. Yeah. And just went to town on my Blood Reavers, blew them away. The dwarf was up there taking pot shots at me from a side building, like the big cheater he was, which reminds me of what the scenario was. We did the graveyard scenario, where you have to defeat the guardians of the graveyard. So there's like 8 zombies and 2 spirit hosts, and then a tomb scorpion comes out, and then you can loot it. And so that was cool. My Bloodthirster went down. Almost all my heroes went down. I had 1 hero alive at the end. I lost all of my Blood Reavers, so 5 Blood Reavers died. It was a bloodbath, and I didn't even put the Empire player on route testing. By the time he just murdered me. So that was less good. But in the end, again, the dwarf won because I did weaken the Empire player enough that he didn't have time to get over there and get on the objective. While the dwarf had just been steadily working, killing the zombies, killing the spirit hosts, and then the tomb scorpion came out and went first, missed, just did nothing, which they're pretty good now in the new rules. But he did nothing. And then the Dwarf Lord rolled up and crit him twice with his D3 damage hammer. And just, that was the end of that thing. He just cracked it on the skull twice and then walked in and claimed the prize. So that was cool. He ended up getting a garbage prize out of it because, of course, it's random what relic you find in the searching for the lost relic. I mean, he got 46 gold, which isn't nothing. But it's also not like, Blood Drinker, Vlad von Karstein's sword or whatever, which is also on the list. The injury rolls at the end of that game were both hilarious and fun, as always. All 5 of my Blood Reavers survived. I didn't roll a single 1 or 2.
Wow.
So that was amazing. And I mean, I had a couple people with my Blood Reaver hero who had also died. Like the entire Blood Reaver core was just wiped out because those guys don't get saves, right? Their save is just so they get torn up like wet tissue paper. But
like witch elves.
Yeah, exactly, just like witch elves. And he rolled on the mental entry table and got traumatized and rolled fear of the entire race that put him out of action. Wow. So he now fears all Empire. Like that, he fears the entire Empire. So not great.
All of them.
Yeah. So now he has to roll twice. He has to reroll successful hits in melee combat. Well, since he's from Khorne, guess what? That's all he does. So that's going to be not a great. He's going to have a rough go of it. That's okay. That just means send him against the dwarves or whomever else is in the game. My Bloodthirster, however, rolled mental injury or whatever and got psychopathy, murderous. And so she can never hold an objective as long as there are enemies alive, which means she can never hold an objective. However, the other side of that murderous intent out of psychopathy is that she can attack people who are knocked down or stunned, even when there are living foes around her. So great is her lust for murder. And I was like, oh, best roll ever. Like, who cares? She's the best objective holder in the bunch. I mean, she is, because if she squats on something, it's going to be hard to move her, right?
Right.
But I don't care. Who cares? So long, all of this knockdown, stun garbage, there's lots of murdering to do. Like, I'm very excited about that. So, yeah.
That's a huge win on a roll.
It really was. So a little good, little bad, as can sometimes happen on the injury table. That's what's fun about it. So yeah, and then more games to come, but they've been very, very fun. I know Merrick put up a video. I haven't got a chance to watch it yet on his Mordheim progress. I'm very keen to see how his all Lizard Man hero warband is doing. He just took all Saurus Old Bloods. That's all he's got. He has no troops. Yeah, like he said, do you think it would be a reason? He used the Slann warband, the one that's normally headed by the Slann, and he
say, wasn't there a requirement that you have to take troops, like in the warband construction rules?
Yes, one of them is supposed to be that. But he came to me and said, I'd like to try this like this. Do you think it'd be a problem? I said, I don't care, man. Play however you want. Like, if you think, like, he's like, I want to get rid of my Slann and I want to just have all Old Bloods. Do you think I could do that as a special warband? I said, sure. Like, I mean, one, I'm not the rules judge of your game, right? Like, if you think that sounds fun, give it a shot. If it doesn't work and it's horrible, then you know not to do that. don't do that. But that's why it's alpha. Play with it, stretch it, try to break stuff. That's the fun of this stage of the game, right? You got to push the rules a little. And so he just has like 5 Saurus Old Bloods. And that's all. So there's like 35 wounds in that warband on that.
Sure.
Because those guys are 7 wound models. He, like my guess is from thinking about that, if it's a center point scenario where everybody's rushing to one thing, he's going to be really strong. If it's a spread out around the board scenario, he's in trouble, right? Because he's got one-man people rolling out.
Because as soon as you're putting 4 wounds on any of those guys, they're all making morale checks every round.
Right, exactly. And all it takes is a couple normal dummies with, multiple attacks or something that get a crit off, and you can get those guys to that point pretty fast.
Yep.
Saurus have good armor, but crits say, I don't care about armor often.
Or have a caster.
Sure,
it has nothing. I mean, magic will do that job faster than anything else. So the end of my last Night Goblin situation is I ended up dropping. So on the portal, I had like reduced DCs or reduced costs and DCs, I think, and I dropped like a 10 on my rarity roll for my general. So that means that I could basically get whatever I wanted that I could afford. And it was a tough call. But at the end of the day, I went and grabbed another Night Goblin Shaman. So now, like, they're rolling out, throwing, and one by the way, and both of them have rolled for a foot of Gork.
Oh wow,
so,
nice.
Yeah. So it is a slaughterhouse of goblin stomping. So.
So John Talby had asked a question of how's your game going. I hope we answered that, John. It's going really well. Like, honestly, it's just been a fantastic time. I've got to say that, I've made very clear that I like Age of Sigmar as it is. I do like it with some sort of comp systems on it as opposed to the back and forth placement. But I like it in more or less all of its forms. But this is the most fun I've had playing Age of Sigmar so far. Just because it has all those trappings and trimmings of Mordheim that I love so much, right? That post-game injury roll, the little harder construction of the warband restrictions, and the flavor of the individual warbands. That's what I do really love that. There is some level of like restriction breeds creativity, right? And fun.
Well, and what I would say is that one thing that this brings, so like Age of Sigmar was already very swingy. And what I mean by that is that, like, once, like, conflict happened, things just exploded. Like, I watched, in my first game, Age of Sigmar, I took a big block of, like, Sword Masters up against a Vargeist. I'm sorry, not a Vargeist, a Terrorgeist. And, like, he came roaring in and did, like, a bunch of damage and took out, like, I don't know, like, half of my unit of Sword Masters, and he was feeling all good. And then my Sword Masters turned around and cut the Terrorgeist down to like 3 wounds or something like that. And it was just this huge swing both ways.
Right.
And that in one sense is maintained, but it doesn't allow the big stompy monsters to completely dominate because of the injury roll.
Yep. The injury roll, the crits, all these things do such a good job of bringing the monsters in line. It's actually pretty funny. So real quick here, John, by the way, Q&A is on for our viewers. So if you've got questions, feel free to throw them in the Q&A and we'll be happy to answer them. That's certainly when we do these in the future, I'll try to broadcast the review in advance. We weren't sure we were going to be able to do this today because Tom is leaving. So, but I will publicize these town criers more. So as more people play Mordheim and such, we can take pre-questions and stuff like that. But for now, feel free to throw them in the Q&A, or you can always leave it in the comments if you didn't turn on your Q&A. But if you leave and rejoin, you can hit a little button somewhere around here that will turn it on. Okay. So Josh said, I wish I had a community that would be willing to try this. Well, here's what I'll say. I understand there's a lot of people out there who, when you say the words Age of Sigmar to them, they're probably like, nope, 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 get it away. Like you're trying to offer them hemlock or something, right? I encourage you, maybe show them these videos or something like that. And, I hope that maybe we could win them over. You're never going to convince everybody. I know that. But if they have issues like, Mordheim was never meant to be played rank and flank, right? So those kind of concerns aren't there. There is a construction mechanic in it, so that's solved. It preserves the classical elements of Mordheim, if they're familiar with that they would have liked, like injuries and equipments and stuff like that. So, I think that the framework of Mordheim does a good job, and you could try to sell them on that and maybe win them over. I don't know. But all the best, man. I do hope you get a game in. It has been tremendous fun for me. We generally have gotten in a couple games per night. It plays pretty fast, of course, just like Mordheim did. And it's just been a hell of a good time.
And as Vince mentioned, it really handles multiplayer well.
Yeah.
Which is something that I think for me is always a big perk.
Yes, it really, because I almost always have 3 to 4 people on my game night, which makes our Warhammer games usually these giant like monstrosities. Even back into 8th edition when we were playing, like our average game was 5,000 points aside. Those are big games. And this is just a smoother way to do that. Josh also asked me, although not related to the current thing, am I going to put up any videos on Malifaux? Yeah, probably at some point. I don't know when, just because I do have both of my crews painted up. I've got Pandora's crew and Lilith's crew all ready to go, and I have gotten a couple games in. I haven't been talking about it too much, but I do very much like the game, and a couple other people I know did pick up some crews as well, so they're just kind of currently doing them. So yes, at some point I will do some more Malifaux stuff too. I would tell you to check out, and you probably already are, but I would tell you to check out Nicholas Volaire and the Sustainable Center, both of which, and Mollusk, all of which who have been doing some great Malifaux content recently. So there you go. Okay, so John Talby says, do you think that a couple of lucky rolls, like multiple wizards with bomb spells, will make the wizard way more powerful than average and not so fun for people to play? I would have to say I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I'm not going to say that's impossible, John. I mean,
let me just say that's one of the reasons why I'm going multiple wizards. So we slapped the unique keyword on a number of different units. Most of them like really strong chariots. Monsters also got the unique keyword, and we don't want to like throw that around willy nilly, but we do recognize that having 7 steam tanks could be problematic. And so with that said, I would not, if wizards prove to be overpowering in some sense, I would not be averse to utilizing strategically deploying the unique keyword with them.
Sure. It's definitely something I'm interested in feedback on. Now, here's my other answer to your question, John. When I was playing my Stormcast in one of the early games, that was actually a 4-player game. I'm sorry, I just remembered there was a 4th player. I don't know how I forgot them. There was a Dark Elf player in that game. Hey, how about that? My Stormcast just rolled over them so fast, I literally forgot they were even there. And that person had 4 casters. They had 3, the Sorceress Supreme, 2 Sorceresses, and the Doomfire Warlocks. And 3 of those people had Doombolt, all of which in that warband is unbelievably frightening, because it was like getting it off meant like 6 mortal wounds immediately if those sorceresses were all standing near each other. Okay. And the problem is because of the nature of the scenario and how his troops had to move, they didn't get to stand next to each other. And my troops stood out of range, moved in, and then in unison ranged down the Doomfire and one of the sorceresses, and just immediately sheared off the power of that warband. So, I think spells are powerful. I don't know that you're going to get more powerful situation than that. I mean, auto 6 mortal wounds is pretty horrendous, and yet it wasn't enough. Now, it might not have been played to like the absolute best tactical outcome, but the scenario made it very hard for the player to do that. So, there's a lot of other mitigating factors that can get in the way of something, since it's not just let's all meet in the middle and have a punch up, right?
And that was part of the intent of the scenarios, is to be the great equalizer in a lot of these encounters.
Yeah, or at the very least to create a more random element, right? So, yeah. All right, there we go. All right, so let's see. Matt Kelly said, currently building a Vermin Lord. Which one do you think is better? One for 8th Ed Fantasy. My group plays for fun, so it won't just get cannonballed off. Also new to the Under Empire. Oh, welcome. All right, awesome. Skaven questions. Okay, so I assume you're asking me which one do I think is better in an 8th edition context. So as you can see, I have a Vermin Lord. There he is right there. And I've been playing Skaven since like 98. It doesn't make me really good at them. I'd say I'm pretty terrible, but I certainly can give you advice on this. The Deceiver. That is to say, the Deceiver, I think, is by far the best one in an 8th edition context. And if memory serves, he's like still the best one in Age of Sigmar. I need to go back and look at his War Scrolls again, but he's definitely the best one in the in 8th edition. His ability to skitter leap himself, or to skitter, yeah, I think he can skitter leap himself around. But his ability to skitter leap is very valuable. And his throwing star is very good at sort of shearing off the right kinds of units. Your Vermin Lord generally doesn't want to get into like combat, and he has potent spell threats, good range, and really good movement. 3 things that are essential to be useful and staying out of people's sort of arcs and things like that. So he is by far the one I had the most luck with. And I did play through all of them and, give them all a try at least a couple times. And he was the only one I really liked in an 8th edition context. So there you go. That would be my answer to that. But welcome to the Under Empire, buddy. You're gonna love the world of Skaven. It's a lot of fun. Not that if you have to love paint, you have to have a true painting endurance to want to put together a Skaven army. Just because, when you get down to painting your 150th Skaven slave at 2 points a model, you're like, all right, I really love Skaven. Yeah. And by the way, I took them all the time. Like I play in a group that plays allegedly for fun, but I mean, the Empire guy that I was talking about earlier in my Mordheim game played Empire in 8th edition as well. And he always had like 5 cannons. There's generally 2 steam tanks and 3 regular cannons. He didn't consider himself as a cheaty player. I took big monsters every game, just accepting that, many games they were just going to get cannonballed off. Who cares? Whatever. That's his fun. Here's my fun. All right, let's go back to Mordheim. So we should talk about the update. So we just put out 0.5.3. We fixed some things in there. So namely, we fixed the route rules, which didn't really work. We found out. Oops. Sorry about that. It was one of those things that looked right on paper. And then when you actually got down to doing the hard math and playing the game, you were like, oh, this doesn't work at all. Warbands are basically auto-routing.
Well, no, like not all warbands, just a handful of them. And it's because it was a combination of numbers of troops and low bravery warbands.
Which is exactly the warbands that tend to have large numbers of troops.
It's true.
So it was a bad way. So it's that has been fixed. We also cleaned up a lot of the scenarios, cleaned up some combat language. And I think most importantly, the other big change in my mind was changing the way the injury roll works. In that we went to 1 injury roll basically happening sort of at the end of that model's attacks. So you do all your you do all your attacks, you do all your wounds, and then at the end of it, you get 1 injury roll. And the key to that being, the reason I felt that was so critically important, that is different than Old Mordheim. But the reason I feel that's so critically important is because in Old Mordheim, it was very rare to have sort of multi-damaging troops that really, exempting crits, it really wasn't a thing. Whereas now, the number of things that do D3 damage, D6 damage, or crazy things like that is quite high. And what that meant is that those models just automatically put people out of action, right? The injury table was irrelevant to them because they would just do like 5, 6 damage over that model's number of wounds and just paste it. And that became very unfun, and it really tilted the incentives the wrong way. So I like the idea of, the model unleashes its attacks, and then at the end of it, you see how injured the person is from being put down below 0 wounds. And in playing it that way, it made the game a lot more fun. It is one of those things that did impinge a bit on the power of monsters, which is good because monsters are really powerful.
Really powerful.
Yeah, I mean, I go read any monster. I don't need to tell you that they're pretty good in Age of Sigmar. So there you go. I think that was most of the rules changes. Is there anything you can think of that I forgot, Tom?
Not significantly. We fixed there's a change log for all this, but we also fixed just some things that were missing, like the Spider Rider, Force Goblin Spider Rider hero was actually missing from the chart, so you couldn't actually recruit him. And some other just small things like that, misprints. We didn't make any real big core rule changes.
Right. Yep. So more updates will, of course, be coming, and the game will continue to evolve. That's why it's in an alpha, because we want you to play it, and we want your feedback. Like I said at the very beginning, there will be a link down below to where you can get the resources to play and all that. But we should talk about we talked about continuing to evolve it. So what are we working on? What's our go forward here, Tom? What are some of the things we're working on?
Well, the obvious first step are the things that are still missing. So racial skills. Mm-hmm. And we have, I am totally drawing a blank. Sorry.
You're fine. Racial skills, racial items, right? So we don't have those now. We have the generic skills, but we haven't done the racial skills or racial items yet. So that gear specific to individual races.
Yep.
We're going to also expand out the generic item list. So that'll be good. We're going to write some more scenarios. I don't know that these will all show up in the next version, but these are our plans over time. We're continuing to fit it in wherever possible. And one of my goals, and I would love it if the community got involved in this one, but one of my goals is to have some warbands based on the original Mordheim warbands. So going back, especially the fun, weird ones. Witch Hunters, Carnival, or they not the Carnival, well, yeah, sure, the Carnival of Chaos, or the
Sisters of Sigmar.
Well, no, so the base book. The Carnival came later. The other Chaos warband. That was the first one. The first one was not called the Carnival.
Oh, the Possessed.
The Possessed, thank you. Yes. And something like that. All those kinds of warbands. I think they're really interesting ones. Certainly the Sisters of Sigmar, yeah, absolutely. And so I'd be very interested in fan or community engagement in that. If anybody wants to, write or has any ideas for those, feel free to shoot them along at us. We would be more than happy to integrate those in. This project is certainly as much for and about the community as it is for us. Like, I have fun with it. I love doing it. I love writing it, but it doesn't need to all be me under any stretch of the imagination or Tom under any stretch of the imagination. We're doing this because we think it's fun for the community, and we hope that it's something that a lot of people can get hours of enjoyment out of. So, yeah, there you go. Also, we will continue to add, like, as new troops come out, that is to say, right now we're kind of in a release lull, but as new troops come out, we'll continue to add those to, like, the recruiting table and stuff like that. And if we get kind of a, what do I want to say, like a critical mass of something, where it makes sense to do a whole new warband onto one of the races, certainly we'll look at that too. But at the very minimum, we'll update the recruiting tables so you can bring those new guys into your warbands.
And we still have some design space to explore as well, like with a number of the warbands. Like dwarves, like we did do 3 warbands, but there are still a number of units even in the dwarves that we haven't touched, like hammerers, for example. They don't show up in any of the base lists. Another example of that is like high elves right now, we only have 2 warbands, the Glittering Host and the Hand of the King and Queen. And so something like a Shadow Warrior warband or other things like that are obviously all distinctly, distinct possibilities.
I mean, let's be honest, Tom. Who wants more high elf warbands? Nobody. I think that's a no.
Oh, no, I take that back. We have a third one. We have the Lothern Seaguard.
We do, yeah. Look, Tom, no one likes high elves. You need to understand that. You are like the only high elf fan. I think that's obvious, right? You never see anybody play them. I mean, look, all of 8th edition, did you ever see high elves on the table?
Clearly not.
All right, John Tailby said, we found it a lot of fun to do the injury rolls in our Judge Dredd games as soon as they go out of action rather than after the game. At least you know who is dead and who is injured and worth saving. That's pretty funny. I imagine that would add some immediate hilarity and payoff in the middle of the game. I will say I love it too much to do it then because I love the post-game phase, and I love that, like, oh, crap, let's see what happened.
Yep.
And what I love about it is it can turn a loss into a win and a win into a loss.
Absolutely.
Right? You won the scenario, but you lost like a couple heroes and troops, and then they all die or get horribly maimed, and you're like, oh god, I thought everything was going so well. What happened? Or like you just get your face stomped like I did in that last game, but I came out like way ahead on the injury rolls. I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. I'm good. Never mind. I'm all right. It's fine. We're all good here. Yeah, exactly. And sometimes you can get the double lose as well, which is of course horrible. You get your face stomped and everyone dies. That's kind of the look. It's like one of those swears that the name escapes me at the moment, but there you go.
Yeah, the Punnett squares.
Yeah, thank you.
So briefly, let me jump back to kind of like the development space where we're headed. And 2 other areas that we are probably going to explore, I don't know what this is going to look like yet, are mercenaries and dramatis personae.
Yes.
And obviously, like, there's low-hanging fruit for the dramatis personae because we have a bunch of named characters that we didn't use. And so, something like that is, like, again, low-hanging fruit for this for integration. But we don't know how exactly we want to deploy that yet. And then another thing that I would just bring up that we want feedback from you guys. I want to elicit some interaction, and that is on money. What are your thoughts on money? Is it too much? Is it too little? I don't think it's too little, but are people experiencing death spirals? Or do they always feel like they have money in their pocket? What's their take on it is what I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I had mentioned to you, I feel like we might have a little too much money being given out at the end of the game. But I like life hard. That's part of that's part of the sell and dream of Mordheim to me is it's supposed to be hard and painful and about suffering. I got to give it up to John Tailby's comment here. He said, I would not want to touch dwarves either unless it was with a slave goad. I like it. I like it, John. I like where you're at. That's, of course, the war band that Tom is putting together for the Budget of Sigmar project.
My goal is by the end of the Budget of Sigmar to be able to field all 3 of the dwarven war bands.
With a side of black. No pass. That's a hard pass on any dwarves ever being a thing that I have. And then John also said one of his battle reports has Judge Lunchmeat with his bad leg wound limping away from a band of zombies. Nice. I like it. So I don't know. Anything else to say about Mordheim? Super fantastic. That's what really
Sorry.
feels we're recording well, Tom. Dead air.
Silent.
Yeah,
Yes.
that really moves the needle.
No,
Anytime
I mean,
you can make people look at their computer to see if their internet connection just failed, I really feel like that's really good YouTube.
yeah. How do you know that it didn't?
Sure.
No. What I would say is, we're serious about wanting feedback and wanting people to get down and to experience the game and to play it and stuff like that. And so we want to just continue to kind of push and encourage you guys to engage it.
Absolutely. So please give us your feedback. Play it. Like I said, rules will be posted below as to there. There will be more updates coming. If you have any questions or anything like that, feel free to also leave those below. Tom and I will both take a look. We're happy to answer any questions everybody's got. But I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover in this one. That's where we've been, what we're doing, and where we're going for this episode of Town Crier and Mordheim in the Age of Sigmar. Tom, any final thoughts before we close out here?
Don't go into trap-laden buildings. That's what I'll say.
Absolutely. Traps are fun and buildings collapse. And those two things are great when they happen together. I like it. All right. Thank you, everybody very much for watching. Look forward to continued exploration of Mordheim in the Age of Sigmar. As always, we appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.